Hey guys, welcome back to Scream Queen Stream. I'm Jessica Cameron. By this point, you all know Solomon, who is taking over this interview by force. So we're going to hold him so that he's just not barking the entire time, because he is in a mood. And today we are joined by the lovely, the endlessly talented Miss Trista Robinson.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so very much for coming on.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sally.
So you're going to kick off our Women in Horror Month, which is obviously the month of February. Something that I really like to do is shine the light on other people, other women in the genre industry who are not like necessarily the ones out there on the forefront waving the flag, getting, trying to get noticed a lot. And you're somebody who is so endlessly talented that, again, always shocks me that more people don't know you by name, because I feel like you should. I first came across you as an actress in the 2013 film The Human Race, which was directed by Paul Ho. And you actually played a deaf woman.
Yeah.
Brilliantly.
Thank you.
Brilliantly well. If you haven't seen that movie, it's great. But we'll get into The Human Race in a minute. I want to know, how did you get your start into acting?
My aunt was an actress in Pittsburgh. She did a lot of theater. And I went to live with her in high school, senior year of high school. And I just started doing plays with her, and she started drilling me on monologues, and I really loved it. And I had always had a soft spot for horror. I grew up watching horror with my dad as a kid, so I was able to marry those two things.
Do you remember what the first horror movie was that you watched?
I do, yeah. It was Child's Play, the original.
Oh, that's awesome!
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, me too. And after the movie, the next morning, I had a doll. It wasn't a Chucky doll, but it resembled Chucky. And my dad threw it in the trash, actually, because he was scared.
Oh. I love that he encouraged the horror movie fandom, but was concerned about the doll.
Yeah. Well, to me, anything that could have that profound of an effect on my dad was pretty powerful,
But even then, as a child, you weren't like, this is what I want to do when I grow up.
No, I actually didn't. I just knew that the best times of my life were spent watching horror on the couch with my dad.
That is such a wonderful memory.
Thanks, yeah. It was very innocent and special. It made him really happy. It's so funny. Sometimes I meet people and they're shocked that I do horror, and some people are offended by horror. But for me, it's a very innocent, special time in my life. Maybe the best times in my life.
I love that. I love that. So did you specifically seek out working in the genre, or did it just kind of happen?
It all seems very fateful. I did not specifically seek it out. I started acting with my aunt, and then I went to a conservatory in New York, which is where I'm from, and I loved horror, obviously, for the reasons I just explained. It's very close to my heart. But at this conservatory, we studied classics. People did not talk about horror. It wasn't taken seriously. And I was a little embarrassed about my love of horror. And then I came to LA, and I started auditioning and meeting filmmakers. And we have an amazing horror community here. And that's what I started booking. And those are the people I started gravitating towards. And then it felt very freeing to be open about what I love, and then have all of these talented people that love the same thing. So, but it wasn't intentional. It feels so fateful to me. It's very odd.
No, I have a very similar experience. So I do think like sometimes the genre finds you.
Really? You have a similar experience?
Yeah, like I just wanted to work. Originally, when I left my job, I was like, I just hopefully want to book work, and by fluke, I just started booking all the genre stuff.
And you already had a love.
Oh, I loved it. It was my favorite thing to watch. I just never consciously decided I'm going to be a horror actress. It just sort of happened. Even like now, when I submit to stuff, I still submit to other things. I do book other types of work, but the amount of horror far supersedes everything else. I have also found that I prefer horror sets, because I find that like every single person on a genre movie set is almost always a fan. at the very least, they greatly respect it. So, like, your DP and your special effects people, obviously, but, like, even your AD and your, like, grips and the electrics and all of those, like, they just would not want to be anywhere else. And I find, like, that love I haven't seen on a comedy set or on a drama set. I find, like, on those sets, I find people are more likely to be in the mindset of, I'm doing this for a job. I like it. It's fine. But it's like, it's a job. It's not because I would rather not be doing it. Versus in genre, I feel like it's typically people that if you weren't paying them or paying them a lot less, they'd still be there.
Oh, yeah. There's so much passion.
Mm-hmm. So, I love that. You went from just, you know, studying into acting and the transition to LA. Let's talk about that, because LA can be kind of a hard nut to crack. And that's something that I get asked a lot. So I'm curious, like, what was your experience transitioning into the LA scene? What maybe worked for you? What maybe didn't? What would you say to other actors or artists wanting to come out?
Yeah, LA is not easy. I would never tell anyone to move here and be an actor. But if you have to do it, you have to do it. You know, I'm sure you get the same thing. People constantly hit me up and say, like, oh, how can I be in a movie? Or I love movies. Can you put me in something? And the truth is that I just make a lot of sacrifices because it's worth it to me. And I'll just keep doing it, you know. I know a lot of people that move and say, like, well, if I haven't worked by this law, give themselves a time, or a amount of money, or those sorts of goals, which is very smart. But I've still got this sort of, just like, I'm going to do it no matter what, you know. I can't help it. So I would say it's very hard. But when you love something, you make sacrifices and you make it work. So I don't think there's any one way to say, do this. For me, I also work in other genres besides horror. But most of my friends are very talented horror filmmakers. And that's predominantly how I work. And I would say that might be the most important thing to do, is surround yourself, if you can, by talented people with similar goals, who care about the same things that you do. Because when those other jobs are far and few between, or sparse, I've still got a bunch of people that are like-minded and are working hard. And it doesn't feel so lonely that way. I really think the plight of the filmmaker and that of the actor are not dissimilar.
I completely agree. I believe it was Will Smith who said something, and I'm not going to say the exact quote, but effectively that not to have a plan B. And I think he likened it to a treadmill, I believe, where he was like, it's like if I'm on a treadmill and I want to outrun the guy next to me, there is no, I'm not going to do it. I'm either going to outrun him or I'm going to die. Like, there's two ways this ends for me. I'm either going to do the thing that I said I was going to do, or I'm going to die trying to do the thing I said I was going to do. So I think that that's a really good mentality. Obviously, it's not for everyone, but I also say, if you need a backup plan, then go do that. Like, the best advice I ever received, which I want to know the best advice you ever received, but the best advice I received was, if there's anything else in your mind or in your heart and soul that you'd be happy with doing, go do it. Because this will be by far the most difficult, the most challenging, with the least financial payoff. And so few people can sustain it for any amount of time. And that has sort of stuck with me. Like, if ever there's anything else, I'm like, oh yeah, I would be happy doing this. I'm absolutely going to just stop and go do that. And I also have a lot of friends who are perfectly happy being, I call them hobbyist filmmakers, and I say that without a negative connotation. And so I'm not meaning it in a derogatory term, where they work 9 to 5 or Monday through Friday, a normal job, and then they make movies on evening and weekends. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that if that's what makes you happy, right? Like, some people need a steady paycheck. Some people need, you know, to know that they're going to go in, they're going to do a job that somebody else is going to tell them what to do for the most part, go home, and they can leave the job there. And that's okay. I think you just sort of have to know, like, are you that artist who's okay with the struggle, having a more flexible schedule, but that comes with the cost of not having a consistent income, not knowing where the next job is going to be? Or are you the type where you need that consistency, at which point you might not have the flexibility to audition all the time, you might not have the desperate need to book a gig the way that others do. So going into that, though, I want to know, what is your best advice that you've ever received?
Well, first of all, thanks for saying all that, because a lot of times this job, it really can be sort of lonely and daunting and hard and rewarding. But to hear someone else talk about what I go through on a daily basis is comforting, because I feel like most people, obviously most of my friends are filmmakers, so most of the people I surround myself can relate. But I do feel like the average person makes different choices, which sometimes seem like better choices, but I just am afflicted by this situation, and I can't do that. But it's always comforting to hear other people talk about.
Likewise, to know you're not the only one.
Sacrifices we make, yeah.
Especially with social media, because like people forget that social media is a highlight reel. Like that's really what it is. Social media is not like a look into someone's life. It is a glimpse at the greatest moments that they are curating and making seem better typically than what they actually are in real life to the public. Like it's not your actual real life.
I agree with that. And to piggyback on that, I think there's something beautiful about vulnerability that is lacking from that. Not that social media is bad, and I know you're particularly adept at it.
I love it.
And I respect that about you. But it's very handy in connecting people, mm-hmm. but there is something beautiful in vulnerability. And I think that is something, I think film is often about empathy, even genre film. I think I try to bring vulnerability to my roles, and I think people appreciate that. And sometimes that can be hard to obtain via social media. But the best advice I've ever received, this is what I'm gonna go with. It was a long time ago, a couple years back, when I was in conservatory, we had to write an essay about what it meant, why we wanted to be an actor. And I stayed up all night, and at the time my roommates were my friends, and they were partying, and they were really bummed that I wanted to write this essay. But I stayed up all night, and I sort of ignored them, and they wanted me to join them, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote about why I wanted to be an actor and what it meant to me, fiercely. And then I got to class the next day, and I had all of these pages that I had just labored over, and it got to be my turn. We were going around in a circle, and people were reading what they wrote. And I stood up, and I had all these pages, and I just put them down, and I just said, I want to be an actor because acting is better than not acting. And my friends that were my roommates were so confused because they knew I had written all of this stuff, and they were like, that's it? They expected me to extrapolate because I had this huge essay. And then the teacher sort of took me aside, and he was like, you're screwed. And I think that was the best advice I'd ever received. I was like, I am screwed.
So that even though the advice was harsh, you found it relevant, and it obviously inspired you and didn't deter your love for acting.
Yeah, is that advice? I'm not sure if it qualifies, but it felt like it had an impact. It felt like I was rising to the occasion. I was like, I'm screwed, like accepting that, and like okay with it.
Don't mind, this is a Solomon show. Sorry, I know we're grumbling, aren't we?
Oh.
Yes, I know. Sorry, you're a distraction, my dear. He is very well aware of this fact. He does not care. Thank goodness, just dog and cat friendly. Do you remember your first role that you booked in a movie?
My first role,
or any project, really, like whatever comes to mind.
You know, I felt like The Human Race was my first real lead in the feature. that felt really significant to me. I felt so excited that someone trusted me with playing a deaf character. It was so daunting, and to this day, I still make decisions that way. If I feel daunted by something, I'm shooting a new film next month, and it's a feature, and it's also a lead, something I've never done, and I feel terrified. And I feel like that's the best sign. I feel like I need to move towards that terror and hopefully through it to the other side. So the Human Race felt like that to me. I felt like, oh my gosh, how am I going to play a deaf woman? I don't want to offend deaf people. And then the more I learned about the deaf community, the language is so beautiful. It's so fascinating. I was terrified. And I think terror is a great motivator.
Oh, completely. And your performance was really, really, really effective. And I don't think I've ever told you this, but I was actually born with some pretty severe hearing issues. Oh. Yeah, I had to have multiple. I was premature. It's the only time in my life I've ever been early for anything ever was my birth. And on my birth, I arrived 28 days early.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and everyone panicked. And I was like, I'm never being early again, ever. Like, this is why you should just always be late. Then they know you're coming. They're ready for you. Nobody feels bad. Nobody's like screaming. You don't have to sit in the ICU.
There's no blood.
For like an extended amount of time. Yeah, so I didn't have my ears developed, so I couldn't hear. And it was years before they could do the surgery. And of course, this is the 80s in Canada. And they thought for the first, 3 or 4 years of my life, they actually thought that I had a mental disability. Because all they knew was that I didn't respond to anything like normal people. So it turned out I had virtually no hearing in one ear, and I had 20% in the other. So, but it took them a bunch of testing to determine that. So they just assumed it was a mental thing because they knew, like, when my mom would say my name or my dad, like, I'd just keep playing and doing my own thing. So I also wouldn't interact, obviously, with, like, other kids or my brother and younger sister the way that normal kids did. But it's just because I couldn't hear. So, like, I didn't know, when they were calling my name, I didn't know.
Wow.
So when they started doing testing to determine what the mental disability was, that's when I tested really high. And they're like, this is so weird. We don't know what's going on. And then somebody thought to test for my hearing. I'm like, oh, there you go. That's it. So they had to do multiple surgeries to connect the tubes. Basically, the tubes in my ears had been so, like, not even close to forming, which is why I had, like, basically none in one ear. I think I had, like, 4 or 5% and then 20 in the other. Because the canals weren't connected. So they'd go in and, like, chop them and put tubes in.
Oh.
But they couldn't do that until I was, like, 5 or 6. Because you have to be, like, really...
Until you were 5 or 6?
They didn't do that, at least at the time in Canada, until you were older.
So you have memories?
Yeah. Oh, I have full memories of that, yeah. And, like, because I was also in the hospital for days. Like, it wasn't, like, an overnight thing.
This is traumatic.
Yeah, it was a thing. And that's also why I have it's not a lisp. People sometimes think I have a lisp. I have a speech impediment, and it's because I essentially learned how to talk from, like, age 3 to 5.5, 6. I was speaking, but I wasn't speaking from hearing people say words. I was speaking from reading your lips and then interpreting how to say the word. Wow. So there's still, to this day, I had to go through 6 or 7 years. I went through a bunch of speech therapy. For, like, years and years and years.
Can I say I thought it was a lisp, and I thought it was the most charming thing. I'm, like, obsessed with your lisp, which is not really a lisp.
No, and I don't care. Like, it sticks to one, it doesn't another. Like, I think a lisp is... I'm not sure what the speech impediment is, basically, because I just learned how to pronounce words wrong. And for whatever reason, even after, like, years of therapy, that's why I stopped it, because there was just some words that I'm just never going to say right. And there's some words, for whatever reason, I just can't. Like, my tongue, like... Scorsese.
Oh, you're not butchering.
Okay, see, but, like, now,
I think lots of people
I also
just don't know how to pronounce
but
it.
I also get, like, so stuck in my head. Like, S's are tricky, and then, like, with blanket or blanket, mauve, like, little things like that, where, again, like, I pronounce it the way that it looks like you say it, but it's not. You know?
I know she would kind of overpronounce T sounds a lot, but I think it's endearing.
I think that's
cute. It's very charming. Yes, Sarah Paulson has a lisp. I have, like, an obsession, maybe because I talk funny, I have an obsession with people that talk differently.
See, like, I've always, like, it's always been what I've known, but the fun facts. for many years, I could read lips. I can't now. It's a skill that, like, went away.
Yeah.
But, like, I could read it right up until I was a teenager. Like, 14 or 15. Because it, like, just stuck with me. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have, like, scars? Or
No, because it's all inside. So it's like, they had to go, like, right in. And then, like, so it's basically like your ear, the tubes inside of your ear, because they weren't formed. They had to go in and, like, cut off the ends.
Oh,
and then, like, connect them with tubing. And then the tunnels grow around the tubing. And then the tubing just would fall out naturally.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. So tubes fell out of your ear?
Yeah, like little tubes.
Whoa.
It was like this weird, so I'm quite fussy. All that gets around to saying that I am very fussy when I see people portraying deaf characters or people with hearing disabilities, because I grew, like, again, like, I remember all of the testings, and also, like, there were so many tests, like, as a kid, because they really want to make sure what the problem is before they put you through surgery, right? And back then it was, like, a lot of, like, literally, I can't even say how many days I had to go in to, like, actually get tested for, like, how bad is the hearing now? Like, what can we do? And it's, like, literally I would be in there for, like, 5 or 6 hours with these old, 80s leather headphones, like the kind that block out all the exterior noise, and be, like, beeping, and I'd have to, like, say, like, is the beep coming from this side or over here? Do I hear anything? To determine, like, just how bad it was. Yeah.
I bet you were so cute, like little you with these headphones on.
I was mortified
because,
like, oh, no.
But in my mind, it's the cutest.
At the end of the day, like, I'm so happy it all worked out. Like, and, and there was, like, a game that I got to play, where, like, my mom would hide marshmallows, and I could, like, find the marshmallows by, like, hearing the cues.
Wow.
So I would just, like, fuck around and, like, eat all the marshmallows. So, like, to this day, for years, I was like, let's play the marshmallow game. Even when I got my ears fixed, and my mom was like, no, that was, like, to help you with your, like, hearing so you could understand.
You're like, what?
Mm-hmm. Because, like, and also, like, the first time you go to having proper hearing, you're just like, oh my god, this is what this is like. Because, like, it was very similar, almost like Charlie Brown. Like, you could hear, like, wah, 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 a little bit, because everything's, like, really muffled, and nothing was crisp. Yeah, so, and that's also why, like, blanket, there's just little words like that where, we said, like, to the therapist, I was like, I didn't like my therapist, and my parents talked to her, and effectively, she was like, the chance of her getting much better on the few sticking points, like, it's unlikely. It's unlikely to... Very unlikely.
This is fascinating.
Yeah.
I haven't spoken to anyone else that has had this sort of a...
Well, I'm just lucky, like, again, it wasn't obviously something that couldn't be fixed. And also, they were thinking it was a mental disability, so... Nice diagnosis. Like, for 3 years, they just thought it was slow. Like, they're like, she's weird. She doesn't answer like normal kids.
That's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for doing such a
you
believable performance.
Spoke differently, but I just was charmed by it. I didn't realize...
that it comes from being different. No, it honestly didn't impact my childhood at all. Like, keep in mind, like, by the time, I think I was in kindergarten, obviously in grade 1, like, I don't remember anybody treating me differently. I do remember, like you said, like, the amount of time that I had to be spending in doctor's offices on the weekends were unfortunate. Yeah. And my speech therapist, the last one, stole my pink and blue pens, which at the time it was really big. I think she just accidentally took them with her when she left. But, like, I was really upset.
She probably plotted against you.
Right? It's like a really pretty blue.
Yeah, to this day, if you're watching this.
Right? Give them back. But all that is saying, just, I really applaud how much effort you put into portraying the character in such a believable manner.
Thank you.
And I think that it's so hard to portray not having a sense when you've grown up with it, because it's one of the things that you don't realize how hard it is until you don't have it. And I think just being able to portray that on film is really, really challenging.
Oh, thank you. I should say that they did look for a deaf actress first, and then weren't able to find one. So then I was fortunate enough to get the role, and I did really ingratiate myself into the deaf community, because it felt like I wanted to honor it. The language is beautiful, and it's there are people that are deaf who opt out of having corrective surgeries. I say corrective in air quotes because some of them just, this is their way of life, their language. They don't see a need to change.
Well, I think sometimes too, because there's so many things that could be affecting it, like that could be wrong. I'm lucky that mine was a fix that wasn't overly invasive once they were able to determine just what it was. But I believe that there's other people where it's a much laborsome, process. And also, I think, again, like changing their life, because it's tricky. It's like you get used to, like, your body adapts. Like, that's just the reality. Again, like, people are like, how did you learn to read lips? And like, I don't know. I was like 3.5. I have no idea. Like, it wasn't conscious choice. It's just we as humans adapt.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that that's so great. And I love the fact, too, that I didn't see any backlash from the deaf community. Was there any on it? I know that every once in a while all of the communities can sometimes rally around independents. I've found that cast an actress without the disability to play a character with a disability.
Yeah. For that film, we had other cast members who actually did have disabilities in the film.
True.
But there is, I have a male co-star who is also playing a deaf character who's not deaf. But the lead of the film is actually missing a leg. It was all, casting. They tried to cast people that had legitimate disabilities, and then when they couldn't find those people, they also were open to people that didn't, but would honor the community.
Of course.
And honestly, I felt very welcomed by the deaf community. I received a lot of fan mail that was very special to me and is still on my heart, saying that they felt honored by my performance. And I really did. I mean, I went to deaf church on Sundays. I really I really learned the language, and I really studied really, really hard. It was important that I was honoring and also being realistic, because here's the thing: a lot of people, I know actors that are handy capable that get annoyed with being pigeonholed as only playing sort of, the wounded soldier or someone that you're always feeling bad for. And it was important to Paul Huff, the filmmaker, and as well as everyone working on the film, that we created three-dimensional characters, Just because she's deaf doesn't mean she's not sexual or a badass or flawed, So that was really important. And I'd like to see more of that. Did you see Hush?
Yes.
Hush is so good.
It's fantastic. But Mike Flanagan does a wonderful job with every film that I feel like he does.
It was really great.
It was very effective. So where can the audience go to find The Human Race? Which I still think is one hell of an independent film, and it's really fun.
Thank you. It's on Amazon Prime right now. So
yeah
check it out.
There.
I love it. Thank you.
So let's highlight some of your other films. I know obviously you've got Purgatory Road, which is set to screen in Los Angeles February 7th, right? I think February 7th.
February 7th.
It's directed by Mark Savage.
Mm-hmm.
It stars Gary Carnes and somebody else.
Luke Albright.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Luke Albright. Sorry, my sincerest apologies. The name was blanking. Right, the nerve.
Luke is offended.
But let's talk a little bit about that. I know I have been a fan of Mark Savage's for years. He is such not only a wonderful human being, but a fiercely talented filmmaker. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with his work as independent film lovers. So let's talk about your involvement with that project, the shooting process. I know you shot it out of state, and working with Mark.
Yeah, thanks. Mark is a very dear friend of mine, and we're very like-minded people. We met a while back on a web series, which was not hard, and it became apparent while we were shooting this web series where both of our true interests lie. So we sort of bonded over our love for horror. It's always great when you meet someone else that is like you, yeah. I'm so overwhelmed by, this sounds dramatic, but it's true, the gift of Purgatory Road. I mean, Purgatory Road, he really just gave me a gift. I was fortunate enough that he offered me the role. We did shoot it in Mississippi, and I'm so grateful for it. I'm so proud of the film. And I actually met, I have another film coming out too. I'm sure we'll get to that, but I met them through Mark Savage as well. So it's all very incestuous.
When your character in Purgatory Road is... Well, let's talk about her.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to give away too many spoilers.
Yeah. Thank you, me either. So, Mary Frances is, she's a real special gal. She's a very tough cookie. I mean, she gets by. She's very hard to explain. And when I got the script, sorry, I'm also being so careful about spoilers, but, so when Mark gave me the script, I look for an arc right away. I don't know if that's how you work, but I look for an arc. And Mary is so mythical and magical and such a badass that, he gives me this and I'm like, oh my god, yes, I can't wait to do it. But I was like, how do I do it where it's not a caricature? Because she's badass from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. She's just a force of nature. She rides a motorcycle. She thinks nothing of killing someone just as a means to get by.
She's very different than you.
She's truly a sociopath. But how do I find the humanity in that? Right? Mm-hmm. That was what was important to me, because I didn't want to just play like this cool chick. I was like, how do I do it? And so I watched docs about females that kill people. I'm sure males have similar methods, but I just gravitated towards females because I'm a female. And you know, they all have a humanity in them, of course, because they're people. They have people that they love, people that they hate, selfish. They're not just, nobody's just bad, right?
Well, they don't realize they're bad either, which I think is really important, because you can't play your perception of the character, right? You have to be the character.
Right, everyone's the hero of their own story. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean they don't have regret, which Mary doesn't really, but I think a lot of people do that kill people.
I like to think so.
But yeah, so and who knows if it affects the performance or not. I feel like you really, as an actor, like, I do all this work, and then, I don't know, could I have done it without it? Yeah, probably, maybe, who knows? I don't want to chance it. For me, I love doing the work.
Yeah.
And then when I show up, I throw it away, and whatever is happening, I'm reacting to people on locations and everything. But I don't think, if I didn't get inside her head and find out what makes her tick, I couldn't have done the performance. I can't throw all that away. So for Mary, what I decided is that she has real intimacy issues. Of course, she doesn't analyze herself in that way, so she's not aware. Like, none of us are that objective about ourselves. But for me, like, it became this beautiful romance of, like, murdering someone and then being able to hold them in a non-threatening way. So I don't know if that comes through, but it's how I have to motivate everything. And then it became very beautiful to me, and she became very beautiful. Instead of just like, oh, I want to play this cool badass, I loved her and understood her, and I miss her very much. And the film is about a lot more. It's about Gary and Luke's characters, and they're fabulous, and it's almost Shakespearean. They're brothers, and it's very and their father is a very important part of the film, and it's a beautifully complicated script. So it's not only about Mary and her proclivities, but that's what I worked on a lot. So that's what I can speak to.
And filming in Mississippi, that must have been fun.
It was insane. There were tornadoes ravaging Mississippi while we were shooting, so we lost locations. I was stuck in this hotel room for like a week while the weather was just battering the window. It was terrifying. I was really scared. We couldn't go outside. There were weather sirens going off. That's like a filmmaker's nightmare. Like, poor Mark. I know, poor Mark, and you know how lovely and sweet
he's
he
so
is.
Wonderful.
I know, he's the best.
Which is so funny, because like, he sometimes like goes on these, weekly I don't want to say rants, but like he'll go on this like stream of consciousness on his social media where it's like really strange, fascinating, like nude anime cover. Like it's really strange, and I'm like, this is just such another side of Mark than the lovely,
isn't it funny?
Like, but I love that. I love that there's so much depth there. I'm like, oh my god, I feel like there's so much about you, Mark, but I just don't know. So by the way, follow Mark Savage on Instagram and social media if you want to see some really weird, fascinating stuff.
Exotic.
Like, I never thought I would see that, but I'm glad I did. But it never would cross my mind to be like, this is like something that I should see.
But I love that he's shameless about it.
Oh,
like,
so
this is my art.
Yeah,
this is what I love. Yeah. But, you know, he's so soft-spoken and mild-mannered. Like, he doesn't drink or he drinks, like, hot water with lemon. Like, he's the sweetest guy.
Which is where I remember talking with him at the Serbian Film Exhibit. I was kind of like, oh, it's weird that you're in this space. And then I remembered his Instagram. I was like, it's actually not.
No, it's not.
This kind of makes sense.
I know he sends me stuff, because we're very close friends, and he sends me stuff all the time. That's just, I feel like if anyone else opened it, they'd be horrified. And I'm just like, oh, Mark. Thank you for always opening my mind.
So we know Purgatory Road is going to be screening February 7th in Los Angeles, so check that out. I will link it down below. But do you have any idea on the release date?
The 12th.
The 12th of February? Oh, wow. Okay, good to know. Okay, that's fast.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Love that. That's fantastic. Congratulations. That's exciting.
And we're doing a Dark Tales signing on the 16th.
Oh, I love Dark Delicacies.
I know. Who doesn't love Dark Tales?
They're so nice. I did my first, as soon as I took over Screen Queen Stream and changed the format, that was like the first interview I did.
Oh.
Yeah, because I just, Del is so fascinating. I'll send you links. He's just, you could talk to him for hours, but I realized I also didn't know much about his background or how he got started. But I consider him a good friend, and I don't know these things, because like, it doesn't always come up. Like, tell me how you started. Like, let's walk me through that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
He's fascinating.
Oh, such a brilliant mind.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the other films that you have coming out, because you've got a ton of films. Your IMDb currently lists 47.
Oh, wow. You've been stalking me.
A little bit of light stalking.
Thank you. I'm flattered. Thanks. Yeah, I also have Echoes of Fear.
Oh, which is looking amazing.
Thank you.
The cover art's exceptional.
It
had a really good festival run.
Still running through
awesome.
the summer.
Nice.
Yes. So next up we have Nevermore and Horror Hound, and we have some others, but that's what I can talk about.
Love Horror Hounds.
Yeah, it's our Midwest premiere, Horror Hound.
But they can go to any of the Echoes of Fear social media pages. I know for sure you're on Facebook.
Yeah.
I think you're on Twitter.
I'm
not sure about Instagram, but either way, those two places.
Yeah, they're on Instagram too.
Okay, so they'll have like all the dates for screening.
Yeah. Please check it out. I'm so proud of it. And
well, that's Brian Abney Bradley, who you've worked with before.
Brian and his wife, Lo Abney Bradley, they co-direct, and she's a DP. Which is really special.
Oh, completely. It's really so rare.
Relationship. Yeah. And so I actually met them through Mark Savage. And Lo was B-Cam on Purgatory Road. Yes. So yeah, it's one big happy family. I did work with Brian and Lo. I had a small role in Malignant, which was a film they did with Brad Dourif. And Gary Cairns was in that, who's also on Purgatory Road. And it's really cool because I had such a small role in Malignant, but my scenes were opposite Brad. So I was so excited to work with Brad Dourif. We talked about Child's Play. Did
you get him to sign like a Chucky doll or something? Tell me you got him to sign
No, because I wanted to be professional, but I was very nervous and excited about working with him. And apparently, because of that, I sort of kept to myself. I didn't talk to him at all. And I remember he invited me to come over and like have lunch. I think I was being standoffish because I was so nervous. Yeah.
And like not wanting, there is a hierarchy on sets, even independent sets, whether people like to think it or not. There often is, rather. Like, not in a bad way. There's just like the people that you know are like the stars of that film, right? Like, they're the people that everyone's spending money on, and you kind of, for me, I always find like you kind of have to read the room a little bit and like get to know how the set's going before you can see like how much time you want, or like, you know, who you push where, or like how you operate.
Yeah, and I was a day player, and I didn't know them that well at the time. Now Brian and Lo, they're like my family, but at the time I didn't know them that well. So I wasn't going to bother people. I was just showing up to work. But Brad was so sweet, and then I'll never forget, he looked at me and told me there was something very strong and cat-like about me, and I just took that to heart.
Love that.
But after that job, Brian said he wanted to work with me again, and then we wound up doing Echoes, and it's been having this amazing festival run. Rue Morgue just released a new trailer, so
nice. I will
that's
link that down below
exclusive
also.
on their site. Yeah, thank you. So we're so excited about it.
Can't wait to see it. I missed the LA screening. Do you know if they're having another one?
I don't know about another LA, but I'll keep you updated. Yeah, I think we're gonna do it like a friends and family at least.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah. It's hard, like, you know how it is when you like work in this industry and it's your entire world, and as much as you want to support it, there are just times where you can't, like, because either you're not in the state or you're on another set, or even like I find myself sometimes where I have deadlines that have to be met for like scripts. You know what I mean? Like it's a constant balancing act.
But I did just remember that we are doing an LA screening. I just don't know when, so I'll let you know.
Awesome, yeah, fantastic. Unrelated to film whatsoever, but one of the things that we have in common is our passion for animals. And I know you have a bunch of cats, and thank God you're dog friendly, because my dog's now obsessed with you.
Oh,
he like turned away from me. He's just like, let me have all the pets. Have you always been an animal person?
Yeah, I'm a crazy animal person. Always have been. In fact, my new film that I can't talk about, but I've got a horse in that film, so I'm excited. And in Echoes, I had the mouse, of course. So I've been getting to work with animals a little more, which is great because it's a marriage of what I love the most, acting and animals. Yeah, I'm an insane animal person. I can't help it. I'm looking at Sally while I talk, but to the point where I'm just very sensitive about animals. I would have been a vet if I were steelier, you know.
Yeah.
But maybe one day I can. My ultimate dream is to be able to save animals in some way that I can't like do it hands on though. So
yeah, because it's very hard.
It doesn't help anyone to show up and be like debilitated.
Yeah.
It's not of service.
No.
Yeah, that is one thing that we have in common. I know you have a huge heart for animals.
Oh, completely. Well, and that's also where I personally, people are like, why do you have a dog and 3 cats? And I'm like, because I can handle that. I can afford it financially, and I can handle it in my actual daily life. So for me, working at animal charities is hard because I always want to save them all. And realistically, you can't, financially or space-wise. But I think that for me, if I can like give 3 cats a home and a dog, that's better than like 1 cat, and I can love them all, and there's like time for all of them. So I kind of like think that that's kind of what I try to do. And then financially, there's a couple charities I support. It's tricky because I'm not fans of kill shelters, obviously. But I also understand like there's a problem that we're trying to get ahead of. You know, so for me, it's right to keep as many animals as I can comfortably, financially, safely afford, you know, and have them all get along. Or, like, at least try to take them in when I find them and then find them homes, you know. But sometimes, like Solomon, they just don't leave. He was originally going to come from set in Florida. I was going to bring him here and, like, pawn him off on anybody. And then, clearly...
He's not going anywhere.
No, I was like, the love of my life is not allowed. But it's actually something I say, too, to actors. If you are an animal person, get an animal. Cats are relatively inexpensive, and even, like, some breeds of dogs. Like, Solomon's a low-maintenance dog. But I feel like having that constant source of love, who's not going to misguide you. Because I do also think that sometimes I find actors and filmmakers, if you are lucky enough to have a family... great, but they can not always be your best help because A, they don't always encourage you to chase the hard dreams, and then B, sometimes they're really bad at creating an ego that shouldn't be there, or like encouraging you, like, oh my god, you were so good in that scene. Were you? Like, they're probably not qualified to make that. Like, so I'm not saying they shouldn't say it. I'm not saying you shouldn't hear that and appreciate their comment, but I think more people need to take loved ones' opinions for what they are, which is loved ones' opinions.
Yeah.
So not necessarily, oh, my mom said I was really good in this role. Cool, that's awesome. Give her a hug, but maybe look at other more objective opinions. Or like, my mom loved this short. It was really well done. Okay, cool, but maybe reach out to people that like actually know editing. Get their opinion. Like, it'll make you a better at whatever you're doing. So I like having animals in my life as an artist because A, they'll never lead you down that rabbit hole. You know, because they just love you regardless and they can't speak. And B, I think that just being able to come home and have these creatures that are just so happy to see you, whether you've had a bad day on set or like not a good audition, or even if you're not even in the industry, quite frankly, they just make everything better.
They really
They keep
do.
perspective. Like, you wake up the next day because you have to feed them. Like, dogs are great because guess what? You have to walk them.
Yeah, they're just innocent and they're just love, and there's so many that need good homes. I'm even hesitant to say pet peeve because it's more than a pet peeve. But what drives me crazy is when people don't take care of their animals.
Same here. Agree. Like, don't
I can't
take it if you
fathom. I'm almost OCD when I leave my home because I want to make sure my babies are okay. You know, I can't. They're so innocent, and for me, that's part of why I'm an actor. Really, is that sensitivity. You know.
Oh yeah, he was abandoned. They actually, all of these were found and
It's
abandoned.
more than my mind can handle. Like how it's really hard for me to understand that someone who is made up of the same things that I'm made up of could do that.
Well, and especially because like when I found him, he was already like, he's just naturally a pretty well behaved dog, right? Like he doesn't make a mess, he doesn't chew things, like he doesn't. So I'm not saying he didn't go through that. The puppy phase, obviously, I don't know. But when I found him, he was like that. So for him to be abandoned at 2 years of age, or like thereabouts, I don't know how long he had been abandoned for. The vets all thought for a little bit, like X amount of months. But still, like at some point, he had a home.
Like how, I have no idea how anyone.
Oh, neither can I. I'm just glad that they did, because obviously, mine. And like, if you're gonna do that, then I will take him.
Yeah,
I will keep him forever and ever and ever.
That's what I tell my guys all the time. I'm like, I love you forever. I like look in their face like that, and they're like, all right, mom, back up.
Like, that's the difference between cats and dogs, right? Like, the cats are like, go away.
Yeah.
And the dog is like, I love you too. Never leave me.
My guys are pretty needy, though. I've coddled them. I know. If they'd never make it outside, and they'll never have to. But they'd just be like, "I'm mommy's special boy," and the other cats would be like, "All right."
You're that kid in the classroom.
Yeah, they've been coddled a bit.
So before I let you go and get on with your daily life, I'm curious: is there you play such diverse characters?
Oh,
are there any types of characters that jump out as a goal that you'd like to play? Does that even cross your mind as like, hey, at some point I should try this, or I'd like to do this?
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna say it. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but I think I'm just gonna be
a rebel.
Saying it very carefully. My next film is a Western.
Oh, that is so fun.
Which is crazy. Which is nothing that I've ever played or imagined that I could play. Obviously I do horror. So, yeah, I'm currently studying something that is completely foreign to me and terrifying. And, we'll see what happens.
Well, keep us posted.
Thanks.
Nice segue to the next question, which is, where can people find you on social media? I will also link everything down in the description box below, so you don't have to like spell it all out.
Thank you. Trista Robinson, that's my name. So you can find me. I'm not on Instagram, but on Twitter or Facebook.
Nice. And obviously IMDb will have the details to all of your movies.
Yeah.
Where you can go check them out. I think you'll be shocked you're like, oh, I saw that movie. Yeah, that's right. You're in that. And you were really great. Because you do like morph into the character so much, which is one of the things that I love about you.
Thank you. So, that's a huge compliment. I feel so lucky to, like Echoes and Purgatory are coming out both this year. and they're both so opposite. The roles are so opposite. How fortunate for me to get roles with such a range, you know, from a Western to a serial killer to a deaf woman. Like, this is my dream. That's why when we spoke earlier about, you know, it's can I swear?
You totally can.
It's fucking hard.
It is.
I will never say that it's easy, and it's not glamorous, although you always look beautiful.
No.
It is hard work. I know you know that. And I'm so grateful that I get to live my dream, and that all of my sacrifices are not for naught. You know? It's pretty special.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm getting very emotional.
Awesome. Hey guys, don't forget to hit the like button down below and also subscribe. I produce new videos on this channel every week, usually multiple times a week. And for 10 billion bonus points, as well as some really cool science swag, behind the scenes stuff, extra videos, check out the Patreon that we do that helps us support the show. Thanks guys. Bye.